been through here, me before, flying through the crowds and the clouds. Come here into the main museum itself and all the veterans. Right back. Right here at the Tomcat, overlooking the area here, free breakfast for veterans. They also have flowers and bouquets. You can see them bringing out here on carts, and very, very nice. Some gentlemen getting a personal tour of the Bombay. It's a B-25 Mitchell, set up for ground attack. 8 Browning 50 caliber machine guns in the nose, 2 on each side, and 2 in the top turret. They're pointed to the rear right now because that turret can spin all the way around, protect the aircraft in that direction. Then back here,
before the war, there's only 10% women
behind the Wright R2600 twin Cyclone engines, and the cowl flaps are open. You have the waist gunners, Browning 50 cals on either side. There's no ball turret. Those are only in the larger aircraft. And of course, the ever-present tail gunner's position. With again, twin Browning 50 cals. Some of the gear they would carry, parachute, their life vests and rations, a Musette bag, flashlights, same flashlights we had, same Musette bags we had, same 45s we had, almost the same pistol belt. They look the same. Ours are made of nylon, a little different. Oh. Some of the older aircraft in this area and the rides for the kids. This building right here is a Quonset hut, old style from World War II. There's some around here, some by Galesburg and so forth. Inside is a theater, and they have videos and so forth. You see inside, it's screen down there. Plenty of room here for the people to sit. Quite a nice little theater. Very, very cool. Of course, back in this area is where they have the rides for the children. Also introduces them to the early types of aircraft. We'll talk about the mural up here on the wall in just a second. And very cool, the Ford Trimotor, of course, U.S. Army. They have the light sign inside. We seen a video earlier this year I made over here at the airport of them flying one of these and giving rides in them. Here's an Excelsior motorcycle. Pretty cool too, huh? Here's where it is supposed to have all started. Of course, Icarus and Daedalus, okay? We could really start with them, like they do at the Air Force Museum. But here is the Montgolfier balloon scale model hanging from the ceiling. This, 3 animals, 2 brothers, and 1 balloon. Said to be the birth of the air age. September 19th, 1783. The Montgolfier brothers. They're a famous balloon flight. And it's pretty cool because it's the scale. Right here over the wing of the trimotor. And you can see how the tail and all the surfaces, the control surfaces, are controlled by linkage. You can see the links right here. These are for the elevators. And you see the link and the cables going up to the cockpit. They actually run through little areas just short of the wing and then up into the cockpit. And the same thing for the tail, for the rudder. The rudders are also connected, and you can see the cables right down here. You can see the cables running across. Again, we'll go up and take a closer look. Look at the connection point here on that cable. There's no backups, okay? There's no backups, no redundancy. If that were to snap, well, I believe you'd go probably neutral with this. I don't think you'd have any way of getting up and down except by speed and adjusting your throttle. But you can see right here where they're along the side. It's inside the cockpit. You can see all the cables right here running along the inside. Those tubes connected to the rudder pedals and to the controls themselves. See how they go up through the wing and come back down through the front of the wing on the underside to this toggle. And we'll look at that in just a second. And here's the toggle with the connections and the cables running all the way back to the tail surfaces. And of course, the one here in the front, that controls the rudder. You better have some really, really good cables. And there you have it. And of course, with the beginning of flight with the Montgolfier brothers, they have the balloon era on a big hand-painted mural. Huge mural going all the way around here. Now you get into World War I and so forth. Getting into the biplane era. The barnstormers and so forth. As we come around through the mural, just this side of the Missions Theater, you can see the B-17s on the fields in France. I'm sorry, in England. The P-51 Mustangs overhead. And of course the theater. And we'll go on back down over here. Take a look in the next room. Be right back. Here's a great model of a B-17. You can see the ball turret there. Has 250 calibers in that too. But over here on the back wall, as we go this side of the Quonset hut, the theater, have another motorcycle. This is a BMW, Bavarian Motor Works. Okay, and it's vintage. Right next to it here is a Buzz Bomb. The V-1 flying bomb. Launched from bases in France against targets all over England, mostly London. And then they, Herr von Braun, developed the V-2. There's one of those here too, well, parts of it. Here's one of the Sperry bomb sites. Here's a Norden site. These are the ones that were top secret. These were the bomb sites that the men would have to sacrifice their own lives to keep these completely secret. If the aircraft was going to be going down, they would destroy this bomb site if they could. These were something else. These were held under lock and key and guard. Big deal. See, the secrets were leaked. Yep. Right here in front of the jug. The P-47, the Thunderbolt. That's what the A-10 is known as the Thunderbolt II is named after, because this was a dandy ground attack aircraft too. On it, behind it, on the wall, along our mural here, you have B-17, the Kalamazoo Gal. Maybe I can get that a little better. Be right back. There we go. Be right back. Now, you've heard of the Messerschmitt 109s. Well, this is the Spanish version, manufactured in Spain, of the Me-109s. This is called a Buchan. There's a Buchan in action. Well, this is what the cockpit looks like today in the Thunderbolt. There's been some modern updates. It's all basic flight instruments. I understand. Let's see, every one of them. Right back. Now, most air forces have experimental aircraft, and this is one of them. This is the Curtiss-Wright XP. X means experimental. P means pursuit. It would have been a fighter aircraft. Dash 55. It's a pusher. The engine's in the rear. Pushes the aircraft. They didn't accept it. It didn't work. It worked, but they didn't take it. And here they have one of the little control towers that they've also painted with a medical unit. Looks like a little oiling truck there. Now, as we walk back into this next room, you have a Grumman torpedo bomber making a run on a Japanese target with a 0 right on his tail. We're going to see one of these planes that has been completely renovated, restored, I should say. It's found on the bottom of Lake Michigan, crashed during a training mission, World War II. Be right back.
Found itself in the midst of World War II, in an all-out struggle in the Pacific with an enemy that was extreme.
Well, here is a little model. It's not that little. It's about 8 feet long, of the Japanese battleship, the Congo. Now it was sunk by torpedoes fired by the U.S. submarine Sea Lion in 1944. But before they sunk the ship, that's known as a pagoda tower, by the way, conning tower. High-masted Japanese ships did that kind of thing. You can see right here. And there's the Sea Lion. And here are the engagements. And you can take a screenshot of this that this battleship was engaged in. And a darn good thing they sunk it. Of course, this is the founder, one of the two, Pete Parrish and his wife Sue, founded the Air Zoo here. Of course, pilot, father of the Grumman cats here. That's why they call it the Air Zoo. There's a cat flight. I've seen several of these. They cannot be put on again. Tomcats don't fly, tiger cats grounded.
Ladies and gentlemen, the flight of the
there you go.
Cats who gave their lives so that we might live in freedom.
There you go. There goes the missing man flight. Tomcat shooting straight up into space. Very cool. Now, Pete Parrish, he had his own private warbird that he would fly around wherever he wanted to, take it out of town on business and so forth. It was this FM2 Wildcat. How would you like to have this be your corporate means of conveyance, or just out for a nice afternoon? Now, the landing gear on these aircraft, they crank up from the inside. There's a hand crank. They're not electric. After you get airborne, you have to start cranking the handle. And right here is a little display, and they have the handle off, and they put it on here when they do. And it shows how you crank it and how the landing gear retract up into the wheel wells. And I think he said it takes 50 or 60 cranks to crank them up. Of course, 450 caliber machine guns too, along with the Grumman cats. That's why they call this the Air Zoo. We have the Hellcat. There was the Tiger Cat, the twin engine. That's gone. There's the Bearcat. I believe the Bearcat is gone too. There's the Wildcat. I believe they're working on a Wildcat. Okay. Here's one of the engines used in many aircraft. That R-2800 double wasp. You'll hear about these a lot around World War II aircraft. There's this one right here, is made famous by Pappy Boynton and the Black Sheep Squadron. It's one of the Corsairs. FG-1D Corsair. Look at the gull wings.
I don't want to take his cow off.
Very cool. 650 caliber machine guns. Got the flaps all down. Very cool. Behind us right here, a couple of the employees, they're checking out the Dauntless dive bomber that we met as we were coming in here, dropping the torpedo bombers and dive bombers. This is the one that they had completely gone through and brought it 100% back to life after being found on the bottom of Lake Michigan. It's more than a renovation, it's a complete restoration, rotisserie restoration. You can see the speed brakes or the dive brakes extended so that they could get a real steep angle of attack on the target before they drop their bomb on the enemy ship. You can see the trapeze underneath, folded up underneath the belly of the plane that would hold the bomb. Okay? The trapeze would swing downwards before the bomb would be released. Elsewise, the bomb would fall right straight through the propeller and crash right into the whole program. And you can see in the back, you have the pilot, then you had a rear gunner, had a twin engine, very high RPM, round per minute, 30 caliber machine guns back there. Take a closer look. Here's a good example of the SBD diving on shore targets. You can see the speed brakes open. And here is the rear gunner. Nearby is an excellent display dedicated to the Tuskegee Airmen, including original uniforms and gear. Patches that the Tuskegee Airmen have worn over the years. One of their famous red tails, when their aircraft were updated from the old P-40s, like what Sue Parrish flew, hangs over the entry here. Well, they upgraded to these P-51s, and the rest is true military history. Amen. There you go. Absolutely no denying it. Heroes, one and all. Here's a wonderful model of an Iowa-class battleship. This is the USS Wisconsin. And let's see here. It is BB-64. You can see here on the tail, fantail area, this is the deck, the flight deck area. They had pneumatic launchers for scout planes. You can see they're mounted on these rails, and the airplanes were on floats. They had a big float pontoon under the center line, and they had other ones under the wingtips. And these would be swung out, and then the aircraft would be launched pneumatically under air pressure. Of course, full power, the engine would be all wound up, and they'd fly off. They'd radio back to target locations and so forth, either inland or other ships. And then the big 16-inch guns would train on them. and fire their missions. They had 3 here in the bow. I'm sorry, in the tail fan. And they had 6 in the bow. They had double 40mm mounts on either side there for anti-aircraft, and single 20mm mounts in front of that. These have single 20s all along to the edge of the rail, double 40s and gun tubs, high and low, 20s all around, double 40s again. These are directors. The unit here in the center, this directs the fire for the secondary batteries right here. These are the 5-inch guns. Basically 155mm, about 100-pound shell, close to a little lighter than that. And these are rapid fire guns. Okay, again, 20s all along here. More rapid fire guns and 40mm triple gun tubs there. Today, they have 4 phalanx General Electric 20mm Gatling guns on these ships. The last anti-aircraft close-in weapon systems to be mounted on them. All these tubs were removed. Okay, more 40s, more 20s. Another director there, right there. Pretty cool. This is the armored conning tower, and of course the bridge. See all 4 of its screws. Go on YouTube and watch the restoration and dry docking of the battleship New Jersey. You can watch that for days, and the curator will take you from the bilges to the top of the conning tower tours of this ship. Like you can't get in a real tour. Learn a lot about them. Here's the Sky Raider. They came about too late really for World War II, but they sure used them in Korea to help rescue downed pilots and give close air support. It's a Douglas AD-4 Sky Raiders. 4 20mm cannon. They could be also launched from aircraft carriers. Here's one of the cannons. You can see the wings are folded up, be stored aboard the aircraft carrier. One of the cannons right here mounted in the wing with a round of ammunition linked just above it. Oh. And here's one of them dismounted. Little display case here. See what they look like. And I'll take my hand and go back here and put it here on that round. You can see the size of the ammunition that these would fire. Yep. Another little access door here for another crew member. Yep. Here's part of the layout. You can see where that crew member would sit. Right here. Pretty interesting. In Nam, they use these exclusively in special warfare, also to rescue pilots or anyone. They call them the Sandies. Now, probably close to 30 years ago, I seen an advertisement in a shotgun news magazine for a 1,000-pound Mark 88 Model 0 practice bomb for sale at an armory in Geneseo, Illinois. And so I got on the horn. It was dirt cheap, and I bought it. And they shipped it up to me, and I refinished it and repainted it into normal colors. It was all black, like you see some of these other ones here. One I'm talking about is a large one here laying on the floor. It's 11 feet 4 inches long, and if it were loaded, it'd weigh 1,000 pounds. And they used to drop these from these Sandies, as well as this other ordnance right here. There's a 500-pounder. That's a Mark 87 Model 0. This one's a Mark 88. All right. I think altogether, including the paint and the whole 9 yards, even bringing it over here, padded in the back of my pickup truck, I don't think I had $200 into it. It's a fact. It's been here for 30 years. Yep. They know who brought it to them. I'm not worried about that, just so it's here. It looked really lousy as a display in my living room. Be right back. Okay, we have a C-47, the military cargo version of the DC-3, the Goonie Bird. And you can see the invasion stripes that are painted on the wings and the fuselage. They have an airborne trooper ready to jump. But they also could connect them, as you can see here in the tail, to large ropes. And those ropes would be connected to the Waco gliders. And here is the Fighting Falcon Waco glider. They'd pull these down the runways, they'd get airborne, and then they'd pull these gliders behind the planes all the way to where they would release the cable, and the pilots and co-pilots of the gliders would fly them in to land them. They'd glide, there's no engines. And they would land in fields and wherever, and they had some really, really heavy and horrific combat associated with those glider operations. Read about them. This one right here is presented by the Greenville Schools of Greenville, Michigan, as many of these were made in Greenville. And here I'll show you the different places around the state that made these gliders. Okay, here shows the cargo layout and capacity. One Jeep or 1/4 ton trailer, a caisson, 4,000 pound bulldozer, a 75 millimeter pack howitzer and ammunition, and of course men. Okay, I'll insert a couple photos of that pack howitzer. Be right back. I think I'll also include a picture of my mother near the end of the war, driving her Jeep. She was a pool driver at a base in New Mexico out in the desert. She drove people from where they stayed to where they were working. And she couldn't talk about that much. But we do have a great picture of Mom in her Jeep. Jeeps flew over the beaches and landed behind enemy lines, transported in gliders on D-Day. Again, here you have your airborne troopers getting ready to jump out. 20,000 airborne paratroops jumped on D-Day. You can see the hinges just behind him right here. This whole panel opens up like a clamshell. That's how they can load in Jeeps and other things, larger cargo, and through that opening right there. Okay, now to confuse the Germans on D-Day, they sent Gummipuppen, rubber dummies that had pyrotechnics in them, and they threw them out. They had little parachutes and they looked like little airborne guys, and when they hit the ground their arms would bend and they would actuate the pyrotechnics, and it would sound like a bunch of firecrackers going off. And the Germans thought they were being assaulted, and so they're just firing blindly all over the place. It had a lot of confusion. It formed tons of confusion for a little while, then they figured it out. Right here behind me and above me, a couple of examples of the Gummipuppen. Right back. They are hanging from the ceiling. There's one example right there. There's another example right there. Now these are repops. The originals are worth thousands and thousands of dollars. There you go. Here's an early example. The U.S. Army. This is I think it's a 29. Let's see. Oh, it's a 23. It's an OH-23B Raven. Okay. Very early on. And take a look. It has a 6-cylinder engine. It's turned on its side. Okay. Of course, your crank and everything is right there on the top, connected to the gearbox and so forth, up into the rotor system. Yep. There you go. It's quite an air cleaner on there too. And get a little head on there. That's CH-47. Here's a few of the basic Japanese weapons. This is actually most of them. There are 3 machine guns that aren't here, and there's 1 pistol. It's not here, but this is just about it. The Arisaka bolt-action rifle. You have the Type 36 Arisaka. They made another type too. It's more of a carbine. You have the knee mortar, Type 89, 50 millimeter. I had the Type 11 light machine gun with a hopper feed on it. And then you have the magazine-fed Type 96. All of these using the same size ammunition. The hopper feed used stripper clips that you'd stack in there, lifting that little handle up, putting the clips under, and that handle would keep them down, and the stripper clips would feed in off the stripper, and then chunk down as they were needed. The empties would fly out the bottom. Yep. We had the BAR. Same as this one back here. We had the BAR. They had these. Okay, be right back. We talked a little bit about rockets. Well, this is taunted to be this gentleman, Robert Goddard, Dr. Goddard, the father of modern rocketry. This is a scale model of one of his test rockets, most famous ones. And you can see him over here putting some finishing touches on it. And then the famous pictures that we remember in high school from the history books. Stands with the world's first fuel rocket ready to launch. Massachusetts Field, 1926. Okay, we talked about Herr von Braun over with the V1. This is the V2. He sent those against England as well. Later, when Germany developed the atomic bomb, he was going to mount one in the nose of one of these, and then mount this rocket inside of a rocket 3 times its size that would carry it over the Atlantic, and then this rocket would dislodge from the nose cone, fly down and strike New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and so forth. But they didn't make it. And right at the end of the war, von Braun was, he jumped out of his SS uniform and was given clemency, so forth, brought on board in the United States as our top rocket scientist. He literally invented the moon rocket, the Saturn V. We'll see the motors, the engines for a Saturn V here. This is one of the motors from the V2. And again, that's the thrust chamber. This is the hot section, right here in the rear end of that rocket. Now this is a small version of it. The real rocket is quite tall, very heavy. Okay, here's a couple of missiles we're going to take a look at. This one's a little newer than the one behind it. Actually, pretty much took its place. But after the jet age, ships needed to be protected farther out by missiles instead of guns, cannons, 40 millimeter gun tubs and 20 millimeter tubs and so forth. Fast firing 5-inch guns. They needed something that would reach out and touch them a couple hundred miles away. is that the speed that jets were flying and the anti-shipping missiles they carried, they had to be taken out quick. And so you have the Tartar missile, okay, brought on board, okay. They also replaced with some missile cruisers and so forth these gigantic Talos missiles, okay. Now these were fired from dual launchers on different ships, different missile cruisers. You should see the weapons bay inside. These can't stand up like some of these others. These can be fired out of vertical launch tubes. I don't believe this one can, but the standards and so forth can. But these had to be launched almost like a torpedo. So just think of the size of the structure, the superstructure on the ship. Just to sit there and house, I believe there was 83 of these on board, what I read. Okay, you have the boost section here in the back, and then you have the primary section, and that's ramjet. These are a ramjet engine. Here's the forcing cone. Look at all of the probes, the sensory probes. Okay. Now, of course, this is a test unit. The real thing aren't this color. There you go. Anti-aircraft defense, about 65 nautical miles, supersonic. Okay. The ramjet has 40,000 horsepower. A solid rocket boosted the Mach 2.5 Tallow 40,000 horsepower ramjet kept it soaring. Actually, it's just amazing. They used them until 1980, and they have units now that just the weight of this one missile alone, okay, is equal to 10 of what we have on the ships today. Yep, and they're much more accurate and they're faster. Right back. Here's one of the engines off from the Atlas Sustainer. It's an Atlas Sustainer engine, of course, used talk about this in just a second. We take a look at the one of the Sustainers. Nothing on here says made in any other country. It's all made right here in the USA. Right back. Of course, this is a mock-up of the Gemini capsule. Okay, Alan Shepard right back here, taking a little ride on one. And picking the capsule up out of the ocean after splashdown. And we got it on the deck of the carrier. Freedom 7, May 5th, 1961. A couple of the others back here, and you can see one of the engines we're just looking at. And it has two of them. And here's one. Pretty cool. Everything they had to go through. This little walk in space. And then on to Apollo. Apollo means two. And so the space capsule, and this is a mock-up of an Apollo capsule. So they have a crew of two. I'm sorry, Gemini. I don't know why I was saying Apollo. Apollo was a little bit later. Went to the Gemini first. The Gemini twins. And then on to Apollo. Apollo had 3. Here's the Gemini capsule. Okay, now this orange device with this really cool looking rocket here on the end with the Venturi. All right, this was the escape rocket. If something went wrong on takeoff, okay, we'll go over here to this picture. You see the rocket mounted on the top. They could dislodge the capsule from the rest of the rocket itself, and those motors would kick on and pull this whole thing away, and it would shoot this thing off at about 200 or 300 miles an hour for about maybe 35 or 40 seconds, and those rocket engines would cut out, okay, and the parachutes would deploy, and the can would float back with its occupant to a safe landing. That's what that's all about. Okay, I mentioned the Apollo unit program a little bit ago, and you know that they had a first stage and a second stage, and then of course the final third stage containing the LEM and the command module. Well, you need something to power the second stage. Well, we're going to look and see the first stage engines in the other building. One of them. It far exceeds the size of this one. This is one of the second stage engines on the Apollo moon rocket program back in the day. And again, look at how this is made. No imports here. The engineering that went into this, the welds, everything, precision and custom. Think of the engineering going into these lines, what they're for. This one is encased in a type of stainless steel mesh, kind of like one of those funny finger traps you used to get. But see, that also is a heat sink right around this real hot rib right there. So you wouldn't want this piece of metal, this metal line, just running that close. It needs to be insulated. And that's what that is. Into a real important component here. It's even wrapped in a special foil. But there you go. I'll be right back. Well, sure enough, they had to have a test module to test the strength of the Gemini capsules. And so they made one out of boilerplate. And the officials started dropping them from different altitudes. They fired retro rockets off the bottoms of them. Everything. They had it sail in, as you can see here, on two little landing gear on a big kite. Kind of a delta-shaped kite, to see if they could land them that way in the desert. It didn't work. These things got its name for hitting the dirt and rolling around. They learned a lot, and the Air Zoo has it in its display. The El Kabong 1. Of course, it was unmanned. It was unmanned. These are some high G impacts this thing went through. You can still see some of the electronics hooked up inside for the test instruments. Well, on the space station, here's your kitchen. Here's where you sleep, crew privacy accommodation. You zip yourself in that bag and just float there on the wall. Zero gravity, of course. Here's your tube socks in there. Here's medical, defibrillator, everything you need here. Oh, here's an interesting place. This is waste management. In other words, this is the biffy. Here's where you sit. There's the throne. There's the suction tube right there for urination, both male and female. There's the Lady J adapter hanging up there on the wall. That's for the ladies. All right. Everything else, your little water dispenser, you stick your hands through there, turn it on, and the water rinses your hands and sucks it out that hole. Discharges it out of the unit. There's your little footholds. You can adjust them for your size. You have to hold yourself on the throne. See? All right. Next to that is the dusha, is a shower. There you go. It's a vacuum shower. Again, you're closed in here. Vacuum. There it is. Let's go spend a couple of years out there floating around like that. Why not? This is a little mock-up of the cockpit area of the Discovery next to Space Shuttle tires. Now, I didn't see these the last time I was here. There are two of them right here next to a really cool model of the assembly and launch area. These are really cool. There, proof I've touched the space program. There you go. Some of us walk to the beat of a different drummer. I'll be right back. This is one of the helicopters that would be used to retrieve the Gemini capsule or the Apollo capsules from the sea. Very important. And again, as you come around the mural, we're out here on the deck of an aircraft carrier. And we have the whole tower all set up, and the floor is painted like a flight deck. And we take a look right here at this A4 in a second, but you have a F-18 Hornet all rigged up, ready to go. You have a Tomcat over here right on the launch rail. It's really cool. And of course, behind us, you go into the more modern times, well, the Cold War. That's a F-14 Tomcat of the famous Sundowners. See the tail? See the tiger shark mouth? And the tail, the famous Sundowner motif. So do their helmets. And then it goes all the way around until we'll get over here into the space age. Well, I see NASA. I see a lot of cases here too. I wonder what's in them. Here you go. The A4 Skyhawks. And I seen the Blue Angels fly these the very first time I went to, and I think the very first High on Kalamazoo air show they had. The Blue Angels are here. And then the next year, they went to F-18s. Yep, a little bit different ship, huh? But here is the Skyhawk. Very famous in Vietnam, ground attack, bombing missions, North Vietnam, many shot down. John McCain, he went down in one of these. Twin 20mm cannons in the wing roots on either side. Up here in the front, it's a air refueling probe right here. And on back, when the famous accident happened, he was aboard the ship. He was in one of these, and when the plane started exploding, there was an accident on the aircraft carrier, and McCain came out of the cockpit. The fires were burning all right down here, and he came and got out on the probe, and he quick ran out the end of the probe and jumped and over the fire out until where the deck would be. It was clear, and he escaped it. And of course, he was later shot down in one of these and then held POW. And the rest we know is Senator McCain. And go around here, they have a nice F-18 Hornet. Very nice. Of course, the wings or tips are folded for storage on the aircraft carrier below decks. Here's the type of helicopters that we had associated with my unit over in West Germany. They were flat glass. This is a little older version. Ours are a little newer version, but we had tow Cobras. They had tow missile launchers there under the little wings, and they had the three-barreled 20mm cannon in the nose. Same thing. See if it still has lands and grooves in there, and it does. Yeah, there you go. Of course, the gunner sits here in the front. He can also fly the ship if needed. The pilot. Fits here in the rear. These black panels you see right here coming up to the sides of the seats. You can see it back here as well in the, to get out of the glare. The pilot, okay, there's handhold on it, okay. That's armor plating. That's armor. These pilots, these Cobra pilots, they really took it. They took a lot of heat. The Apache, the AH-64 replaced these, so to speak. They're still using them. The Marine Corps has the Super Cobras, and some bad machines. Pretty cool. Of course, you know, missiles, rockets, air-to-air missiles now they can fire as well. And a 20 mic and a whole bunch of ammunition right down here in the ammo pack. You open this up and flip this door down and you should see the ammo pack back in here. It's really something. Nothing to fool with. Be right back. Okay. Here's one of the Jolly Rogers. It's an F-14 Tomcat. Of course, U.S. Navy. The Iranians have a few of these. I think they have 4 of them that are still flying. There's the tail hook. There's looking down the tunnel between the engines. It's hooked up on the rail like it's going to launch. You can see a Phoenix missile up there on the port side. They could carry those along here. A lot could be carried here between these, in this tunnel. Just think of the turkey feathers. Full afterburner. We'd be cooked. Beware of the blast. Here's one of the engines itself, Pratt and Whitney TF-30s. American made. American made. Here's a little air-to-air missile, a little longer range. This may be, I'll take another look at this a second, because that's too big to be a Sparrow, and it's way too big to be an AIM-9. Let's see if we can figure this out. Now, I actually seen this aircraft flown in one of the cat flights, maybe more than one. This is back before it ended up here permanently, and it was flown here and also piloted, one of those cat flights by Dale Snodgrass, high time Grumman F-14 pilot with more than 4,800 hours in the Tomcat, including 1,200 traps. That means landings on an aircraft carrier. There he is right there, making a banana pass off the USS America aircraft carrier. His wingtip is lower than the flight deck. He's just edge knifing right along the edge of the ship at very high speed. And there he is, intercepting a Soviet Bear bomber. And so they thought it would be very fitting when they retired this aircraft here to the Air Zoo that they would name it Cat 6. Captain Dale Snodgrass, United States Navy. And of course John Ellis, one of the pilots of the Tiger Cat here, big in the Air Zoo and Warbird world. He's Cat 1. Very, very cool. Down here is the Vulcan cannon. Okay. The General Electric product is an M61. Here's the port. It fires from the top barrel. So the port only has to be so large. And of course, as the fire comes out of there, it's all plated with steel around it. Here's the end of the Gatling gun, 20 millimeter. Up to 6,000 rounds per minute. That's 100 per second. 100 rounds per second. And we'll see here if they 4,000 to 6,000 rounds per minute. Close quarters air combat. There you go. And here's the mechanism. You have it cut away. You have a see the mechanism here in the back, the rotary loading mechanism, one of the 20 millimeter dummies. You can show how they feed in there and would rotate around. Very interesting. And what's General Electric tell you? That they bring good things to life. And they sure brought this to life by the thousands. They still make them. Right back. Hiding behind the Tomcat pilot right here in his flight gear is an M54 Alpha. Now these are the Phoenix missile. Range of better than 100 miles. Okay. I believe the Tomcat could carry 6 of them. We've seen the one mounted from the rear under the tunnel. They could carry 4 more under there. Now, I'll tell you what these were used for in just a second. Right back. Well, the aircraft carrier, if it was coming under attack by the enemies, they all have long-range anti-shipping missiles. We have some ourselves. One's called the Harpoon. There's others I won't mention. But some of them can skim along the surface of the water almost undetected at high speed. Well, they come right in close to the ship. That's when those 20mm phalanx systems go into play, firing one of these Gatling guns, several of them, trying to shoot down the missile. Last-ditch effort before it strikes the aircraft carrier. Well, you don't want all that to happen. So they developed this aircraft specifically to carry the Phoenix missiles, high speed, straight at the enemy coming in, and then launch as far out as they could launch, having these 100-mile range to try to keep that enemy way away from the carriers. And then after launching the missiles, if there were any enemy left still engaging, then of course if you ever watch the movie Top Gun and so forth, they would go dogfight. They go ship to ship battles with these aircraft. And there you have it. But the main mission was to fire those Phoenix missiles and keep the enemy off the carrier and the carrier group. Also add that these aircraft also are capable of carrying nuclear weapons. All right, be right back. Because they are tearing down from an event here a couple days ago, this is blocked off over here by the SR-71. You can see one of its engines right here underneath the ship. Okay, and the aircraft itself. Of course, this is a twin-seater. Yeah, they made training units. This is one of them, and also used in some very secret observation gathering. So I do believe that back seater was in control of. All right. And again, as we go around the room, we go from the Tomcats on the wall and the mural into space, and then around here with all of the really cool parts of space and beyond. And then right back over here to the kids are over there having a ball. All right, I'll be right back. And of course, you exit following the footprints into the gift shop. We're going to come out here and take a little look at a flying tiger. Sue Parrish's P-40 Warhawk. Be right back. There she is, the co-founder of the Air Zoo. Both her and her husband passed away years ago. I've seen her fly this aircraft acrobatically at several air shows. There's the mascot of the Women's Air Corps, Fifanelia. And there's Sue. And right behind Sue is a flying tiger. Of course, these were known as flying tigers. The flying tigers flew these, a group out of China against the Japanese early in the war. They were mercenaries, and they went after the Japanese. Tex Hill, look up Tex Hill. He was quite a pilot. He was one of the flying tigers. And these P-40s went on to serve in North Africa in our army. And the paint jobs on them in that hot desert sun, they faded pink. Hence the pink that the aircraft is painted. That's original. It's new paint, but original coloring. How they faded. And of course, Sue put her Her feminine touch of the lady's eye there on the front of the tiger. The tiger cat. Tiger shark, I should say. All right, be right back. Okay, it's time to say goodbye to this rather long part one. Couldn't help it. We're going to go over into the other building, and that'll be a little shorter look. Out here in these old ammo crates, they've made this into a really cool got one, leave one, need one, take one book drop. Very cool. More and more people on their way in. Yeah, we'll end this where we began, here at the anchor. Anchor's away. Have a great day out there. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for watching. Every single one of you, I appreciate you. I sure appreciate it. God bless America. God bless our veterans.